Good morning and welcome everyone to today's CHC webinar, Accelerating the Heating and Cooling Transition, Unlocking the Potential of Geothermal District Heating. I see the first attendees are rolling in. We're still giving it a few minutes to gather some more people. In the meantime, as you are joining and as others are joining, I would like to invite you to write in the chat where you are all dialing in from. As to us, I believe we are in Brussels, in Prague, and in Poznan. That is the panelists and myself. But we'd be very interested to see where all of you are coming from. And I see we are having some more participants coming in. One person from Rotselaar near Leuven, so that's close by. That's not too far yet. Some people from Brussels as well. Very good. Well, I think we can get started now, also in respect of everyone's time. And I'll just give a short introduction before we get on to the content. This webinar is being brought to you by the Cool Heating Coalition. We are a coalition of 16 civil society organizations and think tanks that work together to make sustainable, renewable, and affordable heating and cooling a reality across the EU. We believe that the decarbonization of heating and cooling by 2040 is essential to ensure our energy security, to improve public health, and to reach the EU's climate targets. Today, we will be speaking to you about one of the exciting technologies that make that transition possible, namely geothermal, and in particular geothermal district heating and cooling. As most of you will know, there have been quite some policy developments on that area recently. In January, the European Parliament adopted an own initiative report on geothermal energy. Among other points, the report stresses that the greatest potential of geothermal energy lies in district heating and cooling, and especially for decarbonizing that sector. It emphasizes that there's a need both to modernize existing installations and to build new ones, and to that end, it calls for a European strategy for accelerating the development of geothermal energy to decarbonize heating and to contribute to the EU's independence and to meet the objective of at least tripling the share of energy demand covered by geothermal and solar heat by 2030, as announced in the EU solar strategy that came earlier. It says that an assessment of Europe's geothermal potential should be made, among others, to identify the potential for district heating and cooling. It also calls for a geothermal alliance consisting of member states, industry, academia, and civil society to exchange best practices and implement this strategy. In May, a group of 15 member states came forward with a non-paper calling for the inclusion of heating and cooling as a key sector, also mentioning geothermal and district heating, of course. And this was in response to the Commission's February communication on the EU's 2040 climate target, which we expect to be taken up further in this new political cycle. We're also a bit more than a week into the Hungarian Presidency of the Council of the EU. They have declared the promotion of geothermal energy as one of their priorities for energy policy in the next few months. It hopes by December to arrive at a set of council conclusions on the promotion of geothermal energy, and in particular on reducing the financial risks for geothermal energy projects. As we've entered the 2024-2029 policy cycle and are waiting for the new cabinet of commissioners to be formed, these developments have the potential to give impetus to the deployment of geothermal heating and cooling, especially in district heating. Today, we will discuss what the possibilities for geothermal look like, what obstacles lie in the way of realizing that potential, and how we can clear those obstacles. To that end, I have today here four wonderful panelists. Malte Nyenhuis, Head of EU Affairs at Innargi, who has more than 15 years of experience in the field of energy policy. Morgan Henley, campaigner on district heating at CEE Bankwatch. She is also a member of the Cool Heating Coalition Steering Committee and focuses on financing as well as on district heating issues. Johannes Immige from Wiener Stadtwerke, where he is head of the EU Office with over a decade of experience in EU affairs. And last but not least, Michal Jinik. He has been working in the heating industry for over 30 years and is currently representative of the management board for the development of heating systems at Veolia Energia Poznan. However, we will start with a video message by Danish MEP Sigrid Friis of the Renew Europe group. Afterwards, our speakers will each make an opening statement, and then we will open the panel discussion. We invite you all to write questions you might have through the Q&A function. You will recognize the button for that function because it says Q&A below it. In a moment, my colleague Anna will share her screen and we will hear from Sigrid. For your awareness, the sound is a bit soft, so turn it up as much as possible, but we also have put subtitles.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me to speak here at your online conference. My name is Sigrid Friis. I am a newly elected member of the European Parliament. I'm from Denmark and I represent the party of Radikale Venstre. We are located in the Renew group, and I am sorry that I couldn't be with you live today, but we are still settling and coordinating the committee distribution, very important for the next mandate. And I am, of course, working towards ending up in the ITRA committee and being able to still dedicate my time to work on the European energy policies. Because to me, creating a green energy union is really the answer to more than one question. It's the question of how to tackle climate change, how to create a sustainable future. The answer lies in the European energy policies for the next generation. It's the question of how we can stop funding Putin's war in Ukraine, how we can free ourselves from the dependency of Russian oil and gas. The answer lies in the European energy policies for the next generation. And if the question is how to ensure a reasonable cost of living, how to combat the everyday concern that some citizens of the European Union have, how to pay the bill at the end of the month, we must ensure stable and sustainable energy prices all over the European Union, and the answer, of course, lies within the European energy policies. I'm very excited to be getting to work. This is my first time being an elected politician. My professional background is actually from the Danish District Heating Association. So I used to work in Denmark on a local level with ensuring the transition from the technologies from the past into the technologies of tomorrow. Of course, one of the new and very interesting ones, not just in Danish but also in European context, is the geothermal heating. District heating, as you know, is a key enabler of the heat transition, presenting an available and promising solution for many cities and areas across the European Union to integrate the renewables like geothermal as well as the unavoidable waste heat. So we need in Europe urgently to step up the political attention and support for expanding and modernizing district heating for realizing nonetheless the untapped potential of geothermal energy. So of course there's a big focus on decarbonization, but apart from decarbonization, geothermal district heating as a local renewable heat source contributes largely to the energy security, to the competitiveness, to the local economic growth, and to the socially balanced heat transition. So I think it's about time to make heating a priority in the next EU policy cycle, to increase the political support and to take concrete actions to help member state, local communities and energy companies realize the untapped potential of geothermal district heating. I think as many of you attending this seminar might know, there's quite a complexity, and given this complexity, we need to help member states and the cities increase the political support and the implementation of the Fit for 55 provisions. We need to take into account all the locally available clean energy sources in a long-term perspective. This could be done via EU guidance on heating and cooling plans. I think we should also adopt an EU-level geothermal strategy as part of a broader reflection on heating and cooling to identify the concrete measures to accelerate deployment and to remove barriers for geothermal district heating projects. I think that an EU geothermal strategy will be an important political as well as market signal to decision makers on regional and local level. District heating operators and geothermal companies might also find this very interesting and find that this will actually help them in their planning of the energy policies for the future. I think we should focus on accelerating the permitting for geothermal projects. We should help member states develop dedicated permitting rules and procedures based on the EU guidance and the best practices. The aim should be that there's this one-stop shop approach where we can fast-track procedures by applying environmental screening and the principle of tacit approval as the rule. I think we should facilitate access to subsurface data, as this is a crucial tool to de-risk geothermal projects and the exploration projects as well. Privately obtained subsurface data could be public after a few years, and also to help with the data collection by private actors, allowing them a competitive advantage and safeguarding their intellectual property as well. We can see now how several countries have applied different financial de-risking solutions for the geothermal with various success. I think EU guidance with design principles could help member states when they are setting up their de-risking mechanism. They should carefully strike the balance between risk that should be taken by the geothermal company and those that the public could cover. It's always about finding the right balance. Public funds should primarily be directed towards expanding and modernizing district heating networks to enable a cost-efficient distribution of the geothermal heat and as well as other renewable and waste heat sources. I really want to thank you and appreciate that you take your time to engage actively and constructively in this debate about the energy policies of the future, about how we can ensure the sustainable future for the next generation of Europeans, and how your businesses, how your technologies, how your knowledge can contribute towards this. So thank you for engaging. We are in a new political climate since the election in the beginning of June. We will have to see how we can work together politically and with you as the branch to focus on the solution to deliver not only on decarbonization but on energy security and on competitiveness of Europe, and of course for the benefit of the citizens. And thank you once again for taking your time on this Wednesday to participate in the seminar. I will have to go back to ensuring that I will actually be able to deliver on these important policy issues by hopefully claiming my seat in the ITRA committee for the next mandate. I look forward to hopefully continuously work with you and to learn the new knowledge that arises.
We thank MEP Friis for her contribution to our discussion today. I think she mentioned multiple elements that we already saw coming in the introduction and that are undoubtedly relevant to the discussion. And it's very good to see that also from the political side of the aisle, there's a recognition of the importance of the issue of heating and cooling. Now we will go on to the opening statements. I will first ask Malte to take the floor. Malte, I already see that you're unmuted, so I don't need to remind you of that. Please.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Thank you for the invitation and for organizing this webinar. I'm Malte, I'm based in Brussels, and I'm heading the EU affairs at Innargi. Innargi is a Danish company developing and operating geothermal heat plants to supply renewable heat to district heating operators. We have developed a business model in which we take all the responsibility and risks related to the subsurface, from the initial test drilling to supplying the heat to the district heating company. Today's webinar is indeed very timely, given that the new institutional cycle has just started and the debate is in full swing on what needs to be done at EU level in the years to come, given the changed world we live in today. At Innargi, we believe that decarbonizing heating and cooling is a key challenge that needs to be addressed at EU and national level. It is key not only regarding climate targets, but as Sigrid has already highlighted, it is important also for energy security, competitiveness, and local value creation. That is why we believe that developing and operating geothermal plants to deliver this renewable heat to district heating can be a successful and sustainable business model. So far, we have projects under development in Denmark, Germany, Poland, and Hungary, and we are currently constructing the first heat plant in Aarhus, Denmark, to start delivering heat next year. However, from our point of view, there are a couple of things that could be done to facilitate and accelerate the project development and implementation, and for district heating as enabling infrastructure. That is why I'm very happy to share our experience and discuss how we can unlock the potential of geothermal district heating in the EU.
Thank you very much, Malte. It's very good to have a speaker on board and a company on board in this discussion that's really at the intersection of this local on-the-ground reality and the EU level. Now we go on to Morgan for her opening statement. Morgan.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I hope you can hear me okay. My name is Morgan. I'm from Bankwatch. It's an NGO that focuses on public finance in Central and Eastern Europe, and they focus on district heating. So geothermal district heating is one of the solutions that I'm quite interested in, especially for the region, as there's quite a lot of potential, as we can already see being developed, particularly in Hungary and Slovakia. And given that the district heating situation in the East is a bit different than maybe in the Nordics or in the West, where these are newer systems, the systems in the East are quite old and rely on quite high temperatures. So depending on the geological conditions, it can be quite a good solution for these very high temperature dependent systems of wherever you are. So I think it's one of the kind of intermediary steps, a bit more of stepping stool that we would like to look at versus converting coal to gas. And so, yeah, I would also be happy to share some of the experiences I've seen from the region in this discussion. So thanks for having me. Looking forward.
Thank you very much, Morgan. And yes, this the Central and Eastern European perspective, that's always something to take to keep in mind and to take a special look at. Then we are going over to Johannes, still in Central Europe, but a bit of a different kind of Central Europe.
Yes, kind of at the heart of Europe with Vienna and Austria. I'm representing, as I said already, the public company that's active in the energy and transport sector in Vienna. One of the biggest companies in Austria in general, one of the biggest investors, and one of our key measures in the years to come is geothermal energy. As you know, or you might have experienced already your own, Vienna is the most livable city in Europe, according at least to the latest survey again from The Economist. They have this global livability ranking, and one of the main reasons why The Economist says Vienna is the most livable city in the whole world is the infrastructure and also the high quality of public services, which includes the energy supply. And of course, we want to keep that in Vienna. And one of the key issues for that, if you look towards the next 10, 20 years, is the question how we can achieve climate neutrality by 2040. That's our goal. And without geothermal energy, that will be hard. So that's why we're putting a lot of focus into that. And I'm very happy to also contribute to the debate and to listen what other parts of Europe are doing on that, what technologies are used there, and a bit your ideas, your questions. So very happy to be here as well.
Thank you very much, Johannes. Yes, also thank you for making us jealous of Vienna. But it's good to have something to aspire to, I suppose. Then, Michal, it's your turn.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation for this conference. Yes, My name is Michał Dziennik. I represent Veolia Energia Poznań in Poland. I am responsible for the implementation of new solutions at the infrastructural development of the district heating network in Poznań. I'm currently the manager of the Geothermal project in Poznań, which we implemented this project together with Innargi. Veolia in Poland manage heating networks in 58 cities, including district heating network in Warsaw, about 5,000 megawatt thermal capacity, and two large heating system on one in Łódź with capacity of about 2,000 megawatt thermal, and the second in Poznań with capacity of 300 megawatts thermal, which I would like to focus on in my presentation. Veolia's target is to withdraw from coal and fully transform toward renewable sources by 2030. In addition, we work under it on all Poland, but in Poznań, we are currently working on energy transformation and the decarbonization of our entire system using renewable energy sources and heat recovery from industry. We are running parallelly several decarbonization projects, such as heat recovery from industrial processes. And good example here is the heat recovery from the Volkswagen foundry in Poznań with a capacity of approximately 4 megawatts thermal, heat recovery from treated and untreated sewage with the capacity of the over 30 megawatts, heat recovery from the server rooms, plant capacity 30 megawatts, also with the possibility of expansion to 50. Finally, our largest renewable energy project, that is the project of 3 geothermal sources located in Poznań with a total capacity of the 60 megawatt, which is in preparation. And this project we are implemented together with Innargi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michał. That's very inspiring to hear the different approaches you are taking to decarbonizing heating and cooling in Poland locally. Then we go on to our panel discussion, and I first have a question for all panelists. We will keep to the order that we had in our introductions, and it's about the potential of geothermal as an energy source. Now, within, let's say, the broader concept of Europe, not within the EU, but Europe at large, Iceland is often considered as a pioneer in the use of geothermal energy, among others for heating. It went from being very heavily dependent upon coal imports and peat imports to having almost all stationary energy from renewables. And that led to that by 2014, about 66% of all its primary energy use, so not just heating, but came from geothermal and even more from other renewables. Then my question to you is, where in the EU could geothermal be exploited as an energy source? And what do you think could be the biggest benefits that it could bring to us? Maybe Malte, if you'd like to weigh in on that first.
Yes, thanks, Don. I can give it a go. So yeah, I think you pointed to Iceland. I think that's for many people what comes to mind first if you think about geothermal. I think I would like to start with the first thing, that geothermal can be a lot of different things depending on the type of subsurface and technology used. So basically there are 3 types. So there's shallow geothermal, which just drills down a couple of meters up to 200 meters. And then using ground source heat pumps, and this is used for individual buildings and for building blocks. So kind of a long discussion if this is actually geothermal, or is it because it's just using the warmth or the heat of the sun, which heats up the earth or the surface of the earth throughout the year. The second type is deep geothermal, and this is what we are doing based on hydrothermal systems. So we drill down to between 1 and 3 kilometers into sandstone formations to find a warm water reservoir of up to 80 degrees. And this is used then for district heating. It's with heat exchangers and heat pumps. And this is our core. And then lastly, there is another type of deep geothermal, which is more engineered. or closed loop systems. So they drill down more than 3 kilometers into rocks, in hot rocks. And this is primarily aimed at generating electricity, and heat is more like a byproduct. And for Innargi, we started in Aarhus. That was is our first project. Currently, I think it's among the largest in the EU. In Aarhus, which is the second largest city of Denmark with about 350,000 inhabitants, we agreed with a local heating company, local district heating company, to build a geothermal heating plant, or exactly 7 plants of a total capacity of 110 megawatt by 2030. So this will be around 20% of the district heating demand in Aarhus. And we will deliver that heat for 30 years. And when we developed this project, we realized that there's much more potential in Denmark and also across the EU. So we did a market analysis, and according to that, there are 14 member states with a suitable subsurface and district heating networks already in place, or at least favorable policies for district heating. And there are another 6 member states with a suitable subsurface, but only a low degree of district heating or no favorable policies. So it's basically across the EU, and I'm just talking about the hydrothermal technology. For the other technologies, you can find even more member states. And then there is a report from DG Enna and also a study by Aalborg University from last year, and both they point to in the same direction. So the DG Enna report says that geothermal energy could provide 30 to 45% of the EU's district heating. And Aalborg University looked into different heat sources types and their potentials for the use in district heating systems towards 2050. And according to that study, which was published, I think, last November, deep geothermal has the highest theoretical potential among renewable and waste heat sources of about 540 terawatt hours a year in 2050. But it's like Michael pointed out, so district heating companies need a bunch of different solutions, and one of it is geothermal, and potentially, as it is in Poznan, it's the biggest one. So in short, there is suitable subsurface across the EU to either harvest the heat with the proven technology of hydrothermal systems or with other forms of deep geothermal. However, key for using this geothermal heat in urban areas is the existence of modern district heating networks. And these would not only benefit the integration of geothermal heat, but as we've heard, also of other renewable and waste heat energy sources. And as already mentioned, regarding the benefits, I think geothermal district heating has a lot of them. Besides the obvious decarbonization benefit, the biggest benefit might be the local and reliable nature of geothermal, which contributes to stability in terms of energy security and prices for consumers. Yeah, that's my go on it.
Thank you very much, Malte. That's very, very interesting. Morgan, from the Central and Eastern European view, how do you see that within that specific region? Morgan, I think you might have frozen. Okay, so we will give it you 1 second to come back, but in the meantime, I'll pass on the question to Johannes.
Yeah, thanks. It's a very interesting question. I often, of course, refer to Iceland. They're very interesting because I think they use their potential to the fullness. And but we also have massive potentials within the EU. But the difference is that we don't use this potential at the moment as much as we could. And I think that is really, as Malte very well explained, something that should be a priority as geothermal energy and geothermal heating in particular would provide us, I think, a response to many of the urgent questions that we have regarding climate change, but also the independence and the competitiveness of Europe with using our own resources as much as we can. I can maybe give a concrete example from Austria. Malte may give the examples or explain what is the potential in the whole of Europe, but also in a member state like Austria, which is not known as a volcanic region, contrary to, for example, Italy, which has a huge potential through its volcanic activities, and also in Austria, where we have many regions that are well known for their thermal waters, for example, and thermal Malte. So we can also use there a lot, and it is to give some numbers, a potential that by studies was counted by 7 to 100 thermal megawatts, possibly more, 95% of which are unused at the moment. And it would, if we would use that, it would we would be able to reduce our CO2 emissions by 1.3 million every year, which equals approximately 20% of the CO2 that's generated by heating for buildings. So a huge potential also for member state like Austria. And if I may say, all these benefits that we have described already come to the fullness if we combine them with large heat pumps. It's what we try to do, for example, Vienna. I will give a more concrete example maybe later. And this can help then to increase further the temperatures that we achieve through thermal energy, where we have to go further down to achieve high temperatures. So this can be reduced by having the combination with large heat pumps and to boost efficiency further on. So a huge potential, we have to tap into it, and I think the EU should make that a priority.
Yes, thank you, Malte. No, 20% is not nothing, we would say in Dutch. Michał, in the Polish perspective, I mean, you already said you're working on this, but what brought you to it?
Okay, geothermal energy, both in Europe and Poland itself, is becoming an increasingly popular renewable sources. Many people centrally associated geothermal energy with Icelandic geyser, but there this energy is easy to come by because Iceland lies on the border of tectonic plates and hot water flows to the surface on the zone. In other places, the availability of this energy is more difficult, such in Poland, and in order to use geothermal sources, we have to make drilling, yes, because source of hot water, geothermal hot water in Poland, depth of the source is about 700 to 3,000 meters under the ground, yes. And the temperature of this water is about 20 to 90 degrees Celsius. Yes. In geothermal energy can be used in both small and large heating system, because in Poland Veolia manage the large heating system. Yes, in Warsaw, Łódź, in Poland. Yes. And used primarily in a large heating system with a capacity of over 100, even 500 megawatts thermal. And it will be significant importance in their decarbonization. In traditional big district heating system, it is difficult to store thermal energy so that the renewable energy produced in the summer could be used in the winter. The size of the storage facilities for the surplus and thermal energy would have to be huge. Yes, that is maybe 10 million square meters or more. Yes, that is why we want to use geothermal energy, which is independent of weather condition, time of day, and it is a great solution. Yes, because and it's naturally stored inside the earth. This the advantage of geothermal energy over such renewable energy sources as the sun or wind. In addition, this energy is generated locally without the need to purchase fuel and transport it. This definitely increases local energy security. According to experts, geothermal sources are the best sources of renewable energy. They are emission-free, do not generate waste, do not interfere with the landscape, are safe. And what is more important is stable. For this reason, this form of renewable energy is becoming increasingly popular. We all know good examples of geothermal energy in Europe, yes. But for example, Larderello in Italy, yes. But the temperature of water in this place, yes, and Iceland also, is placed over the 100 degrees Celsius, yes. And they we should necessarily use this energy to produce electricity and heatings, yes. But in Poland, the temperature of in Poland, the geothermal water temperature is below 100 degrees. This energy will only be used for heating. In this case, we need to have customers who will take this energy and develop a heating network for its transporting, yes, because we will not drill on the desert, yes. Geothermal energy is also starting to become popular in Poland. In Poland, we have 9 geothermal sources which supply geothermal energy to the district heating network. We have relatively large geothermal energy resources that can be used for heating purpose. In Poland, geothermal water has a temperature of 20 to 90 degrees, as I told. And but in Poland, Veolia has district heating system, and it is significant, which can supply heat to the buildings. Therefore, we place our hope in geothermal energy as one of the important elements of decarbonization for heating system, yes, because it is huge thermal tank of energy, yes, and we want to use it to supply our district heating network.
Very interesting. Thank you, Michal, for that perspective of how you are picking that up. I see we have Morgan back on. We'll give it another go. Morgan, I think just in this moment that I'm saying this, you froze. So I'll just give it 1 and 2 seconds, and then maybe we will actually move on to the next part of our discussion, and then maybe we'll come back to Morgan later. And I will first ask Johannes and Michal. I mean, Michal, you already talked a bit about the Poznan case, so I'll turn to Johannes first. Both your cities are among the localities in the EU that have decided that geothermal district heating is an attractive option for decarbonizing heating and cooling. Johannes, could you expand a bit on your local experience, and do you also see these benefits that we discussed? You were talking about this 20%. Do you see that in your own city as well?
Yeah, definitely. That's I mean, maybe the goal that we would like to achieve is to have geothermal energy, as I said also in my introductory words, as one of the key elements to achieve climate neutrality. So the first part is the expansion of the district heating system. I think that's very important to understand that, of course, the district heating system is the key measure that allows to bring this geothermal heat into the city and to distribute it. So first thing is that by 2040, we want to get from now 40% of the heat supply to 55%. So that 55% of the households in Vienna are supplied with district heating system. And it mainly remains on 2 pillars. One is huge large-scale heat pumps. Like, for example, now we opened at the beginning of the year a new one that supplies 100,000 households approximately in its final stage with heat, just one source at the sewage plant. We use the water that comes out and transform it into heat kind of with our large heat pump there. And we have many of these projects at different parts of the city, but geothermal energy is the second very important pillar. It is now at the beginning exploration phase, but in 2027, we would like to have the first contribution to the district heating system for 20,000 households, concretely up to 20 megawatts. Depends a bit how much we find in the end in heating energy down. We go down 3,000 meters. We managed to get there temperatures of 100 degrees. So like in Poznan, if I understood it well, it is for heating, not for electricity generation, this temperature. And we want to save then already in 2027, 54,000 tons of CO2 each year. So that's the start, 20,000 households. We want to get to 200,000, so 10 times more in the 30th. It depends on the success, of course, of this first plant in Aspern, which is one part of Vienna, and we would like to spread it out to up to 7 different parts in Vienna, different places where we will have then geothermal facilities in the 2030th, so that at the end, approximately 1/3, as I said already at the beginning, of our district heating system will be supplied by heating by warmth from geothermal energy. Potentially, we would like to go, if it's very successful, finally we can build on and then beyond these 7 facilities, that we can go even maybe to half of the energy supplied, which is, I would say, remarkable for the 5th biggest city in the EU, that we will manage to provide such a big share of the heating only through geothermal energy. It's ambitious, but we're very optimistic that it will work.
Yes, indeed, that is quite impressive. Morgan, shall we give it another go?
Yes, sorry about that. So yeah, I think yeah, we've already gotten a bit further in the discussion from when I started, so I can just maybe build on that to say, yeah, like I don't know how much you caught earlier, but you know, in Central and Eastern Europe, you have the Pannonian Basin, which has wide potential for geothermal. It's quite well known to geologists and geothermal producers, and that covers it's Hungary, completely all of Hungary, and then bits of Slovakia, Croatia, Romania, tiny little bits of Czech Republic and Poland as well. So this is basically a place we know has potential. Whether or not that's conveniently located next to an existing district heating system, it's not always the case, but there are places. And yeah, we've already seen it developed. And one of the things that I think really speaks volumes is, you know, Sigrid, it's the biggest geothermal district heating system in Europe, in the EU, I think, depending on what gauges you use. But they have told us that, you know, from the price crisis of gas, that the price of geothermal was 1/4 of that of gas. So when you have numbers like that, it's really hard to imagine why, you know, why you wouldn't go for it if you knew what was down there. I think what MEP Fredriksen said earlier about, you know, knowing the geological data is really important, because that's another thing is a lot of places just don't know. There might be like rumors. For instance, in Sofia, there's, you know, people have this idea that there could be a lot of potential for geothermal, but the exploration just hasn't been done yet. And it's not exactly clear what's holding it back. Is it just legislative or is it financial? But I think we can get into the burdens a little bit later. But I think also, you know, when you have these really high temperature district heating systems, I think Miguel mentioned that already a bit, geothermal can provide that solution that some other renewable technologies can't if you're really using deep geothermal and they have the conditions for it. It's just a bit of bad luck if the geological conditions happen to sit on top of a city. Munich and Vienna are lucky in this. And I think also they'll provide really good examples of how to do it with existing district heating systems. So I think that's already a good kind of basis for that. Whereas, you know, Iceland is nice, but it's its own beast, sort of. Obviously not under EU legislation in the same way, but also EU legislation isn't really fit for purpose for geothermal. But yeah, we can also get into that and the challenges part of it later.
Indeed. I think the affordability angle that you mentioned is also a very interesting point. And yes, Iceland, in many things, a fairyland. I just let you go back into question 1, but we still had the second half of question 2 to be done. Michał, you already talked a bit more, a bit in your under the first question about the localities there. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, okay. I want to add something, because I want to tell about heating system, yes, because location of this project, geothermal project in Poznań, it is our local issue, yes, but I want to tell about district heating and combine with district heating system and geothermal, yes. It can be said that small heating system up to 20 megawatts can in practice be decarbonized in 100% using geothermal heat or other renewable energy sources, such as sun, heat recovery from industry, or using wind energy. In case of medium and large heating system, those with the capacity above 100 or even more than 500 megawatts thermal, it will be more complex. With medium-sized system, geothermal energy may be the primary energy source, while the peak thermal energy consumption can be provided by other sources, for example, biomass boilers. In a large heating system, geothermal may become one of the many renewable sources. In Poznań, we are currently implementing several projects for obtaining heat from renewable sources, where geothermal can fill some thermal capacity space. We are initially planning, as I told, 3 geothermal sources with a total capacity of approximately 60 megawatts thermal, which will ensure a reduction in CO2 emission of approximately 140,000 tons of CO2 per year. But we have to know that capacity of district heating Poznań is about 1,300 megawatts thermal. Yes, it is huge numbers. This is obvious benefit of environment that local community can obtain of CO2. The second benefit, yes, of geothermal energy may be the lower price of heat compared to the heat price from the traditional fossil fuel sources. The price of heat depends on the temperature of the extracted geothermal water. In Poland, we have high temperature heating system operating from 70 to 120 degrees Celsius, depending on the outside air temperature. Yes, it is changing during the year. In Poznań, due to global warming, yes, the average ambient temperature is about in the season heating season is about -2, -4. Yes, it is average. Yes, and due to the average operating temperature of the system during the heating season is about 85 to 99 degrees Celsius. If the geothermal water had a temperature of about 80 to 90, for example, in practice, it does not need to be heated at all, neither with heat pumps nor from another source. This significantly reduces the price of heat for customers. Yes, the average price of heat generated in traditional fossil fuel heat and power plant is approximately 50% higher than the price of geothermal heat generated without the use of the heat pumps. Of course, in case of lower temperatures of geothermal water, for example, 45 Celsius degree, in order to increase capacity of the geothermal system, heat pumps technology is used to increase water temperature to desired temperatures, and price of heat will be higher. Yes, and will be higher. Yes, and but we still look at geothermal heat as a chance for us to decarbonization our system.
Thank you, Michal. It was good to have a bit more on the details there. Malte, you raised your hand before and now as well. Sorry
yes, thanks.
that I missed it before. Please.
No, Tom, thanks a lot. I just wanted to add on this because we're still at the second question on cases, studies, and benefits. So I already talked about Aarhus, but we have different situations in Europe. I mean, while in Poland, as Michael described, it's about replacing coal, basically, and gas, but mainly coal, I think. in district heating systems. In Denmark, it's also about replacing biomass. So Aarhus, actually, one of the motivations behind the project there is to replace biomass, because they're burning a lot of biomass for district heating nowadays. And the idea is that this is because, I mean, this which accounts as renewable heat, but they want to replace it with geothermal, because there are factors for biomass. Sustainability is an obvious one, but also in prices, price fluctuations, and so on. Price increases, which makes geothermal much more attractive. And actually, annually with our project would be completed, the annual CO2 reduction would be around 165,000 tons. So that's already, I think, quite significant for that city that size.
That's the effect of just replacing the biomass.
That's the annual year, comparing burning the biomass or not burning it, basically.
Yeah.
Per year. Yeah.
Quite significant. Then I'll maybe stay on you a moment more, Malte. We talked a bit about these kind of the deployment on the ground itself. Then there's the other reality, the policy reality. What hurdles do you see within the EU for the optimal deployment of geothermal district heating? And do you see a role for that the EU, or that we at the EU level could play to help clear these and aid the rollout of geothermal district heating?
Yes, thanks. I think Morgan already said that the EU legal framework might not be the best or most appropriate or most facilitating for geothermal district heating. I mean, from our point of view, we have a project in Aarhus which is currently built, so it's possible despite the high investments upfront. So it's possible to do it today, but it could be done faster and in more places. So in Aarhus, as an example, from signing the contract with the district heating company to actually start with the project, it took us 3 years just to do all the paperwork of permitting and so on. So in Denmark, which has a lot of digital, I mean, let's say it's digitalized and so on. So it's kind of one of the countries where those things should be fast, and still it took us a lot of time due to split competences, no experience with such thoughts, these kind of projects and so on. So permitting is one of the issues, as it is for other renewable types. But for other renewable types, the EU already did a lot about with the Fit for 55 package, which is now about to be implemented. But for geothermal, we have most countries, the mining authorities involved. So it concerns the subsurface. So it's an additional dimension which needs to be covered in the permitting and the paperwork. So we would like to see a more kind of coordinated approach in member states. I think Sigrid mentioned one-stop shops, this buzzword, but somehow to be faster with the permitting. Another one, and I think Morgan already raised it, is data. So for geothermal projects, I mean, you need to know before you do the investment if you find something or not, or if you could find something or not, like a warm water we are looking for. And for that, the best or the first step is to do de-risking by checking all the available data, subsurface data, to have an idea of if it's worth it to do a seismic campaign, to get even more data, to be more sure if drilling and the big amounts of spending on drilling is worth it or not. So, but currently data for subsurface are not always available. So even somebody got the data, sometimes it's the public, sometimes it's the private hands, sometimes it's digitalized, sometimes it's actually on paper, and you have to go down in some archives and look through it. So this is where we see a lot of potential for improvement at member state level, but maybe the European Union could help, the Commission could help by starting from best practices, maybe even standards on data reporting, or setting up a EU data portal, because subsurface data is not only relevant for geothermal, but also for other things. And lastly, for district heating and projects like ours, we need urban plots where we can drill, and those plots need to be close to the district heating grid. That's very important. So to not lose a lot of heat transporting it from the well to the district heating network. So, and we talk about the size of a football pitch just for the drilling exercise. Once the drilling is done, We need like about half of a football pitch just to space. And the actual heat facility, also Johannes talked about, is more or less like a penalty area. So it's a kind of a relatively small building, but we need some space around it in case something happens, and in case we need to look at the well again. So you can do a parking lot, things like that. But actually, it's not that much space. But we need to find this, and this should also be taken into account when urban planning is done. Yeah, and then last point, I think above all, we need the political support from the EU, but which trickles down to the local level, because going for district heating and going for a big project like in Poznan with big investments in geothermal requires the support of all decision makers. We have an example in Denmark. I think the city of Holberg, or it's a town, they had the idea of rolling out district heating. They designed a project in 6 stages. If they would have opted for the 6 stages, rolling out district heating quickly in the entire town, a geothermal project would have been viable, but they decided to go stepwise, so there is no business case to do geothermal. So, and this basically comes down to political support. Yeah, and I stop here and leave something for my colleagues.
Thank you, Malte. I think a lot of what you says that lies also in line with that report that was adopted by the Parliament and last year. So hopefully that's already a sign for the potential of political support. Morgan, you also highlighted some elements already. I don't know if you want to add more on this.
Yeah, so I mean, what we see is it's a really different patchwork across the EU in terms of what the regulations are, whether, yeah, as mentioned before, it's mining laws or it's water laws that govern depending on how low you're going. So yeah, how low you go. And also the funding is really mismatched for purpose, because what we saw, like for instance, in Slovakia, so they want to build a geothermal, even cogeneration plant, and they try to do this with a modernization fund, and which is, you know, what it sounds like. It's just to modernize energy systems in the lower income member states, and geothermal projects weren't eligible because they were deemed too risky. So you have it totally doesn't make sense, whereas coal to gas conversions are approved with priority status. So and so in the end, actually, they went through the Just Transition Fund instead of the Modernization Fund. So they went to another door, and that opened easier. And this is, you know, this is a really big, ambitious project, but also was one that for decades they knew could be possible in Slovakia, but it was always kind of this like almost running joke, like, oh yeah, when are they going to do it? And then finally now they're really breaking ground on it. And one thing that is also in terms of
Well, I think you might again have some issues with your connection, Morgan. Maybe unless you're coming back right now, which you're not, I'll give Morgan the chance to resume her or wrap up her answer later on, and maybe we will go on first to the Q&A, the questions handed in through the Q&A function, unless Johannes or Michael, you want to add something to this. I see Johannes, you're unmuting. Your hand was also there. Sorry, your logo sort of
Okay,
almost
maybe
covered.
maybe because I think that basic problem.
I just see. Sorry, Michael. I just see Morgan coming
Okay.
back on.
sorry, my internet is really pushing the boundaries of what's okay. But yeah, so and then the second point I just want to mention is also capturing the other chemicals that might be also produced when you're pumping these underground. So we've heard different stories of methane, but it will also depend on the geological conditions and where you're going. But in some places we heard it's almost 50% methane. And so if you're not capturing and doing something with that, then it's also really harmful and can be even more dangerous than burning, I don't know, even coal. In Hungary, there's some figures that, or sorry, in Turkey, there's some figures that are quite disturbing. So it's also, you know, we need to consider that all hand in hand. I don't want to be the NGO party pooper to say, yeah, like, you know, everything has to be slow and with lots of red tape, but these really need to be considered. And right now, like the legislation across the member states, also the developers have very different approaches. So in Hungary, you have some developers who really take it very seriously, the reinjection of the water, and are really like best practice, like in Sigrid. And then you have others that, just putting it back to in rivers, which, putting different temperatured water into rivers is not so good for fish and the entire water ecosystem. So these are just two big things I would really consider. And I think that's something that can be tackled on the EU level, at least some guidance on it from member states, because this is all kind of new territory. And I think in the rush to, decarbonize, some of these things might be overlooked, and then we're in a situation that's much better than the one we're already in now.
Thank you very much, Morgan. Then, yes, I think both Johannes and Micha wanted to weigh in on this question as well. I don't know who of you would like to go first. Okay, Micha.
I want to add something, because I think the basic issue is plots. Yes, because geothermal sources should be built near heat networks. Yes, this in turn means that sources will be created very close to urbanized areas. Yes, and often municipalities have such areas, but without public tenders procedures, these areas cannot be made available for geothermal sources, and thus for the benefit of the local community. And I think it is one of the basic issue for geothermal sources. And okay, it's have to be close the network, yes, but distant heating network, but but it stands that it is it is in the city, yes, in general, yes.
Yeah, indeed. No, that makes that makes sense. Johannes.
Yeah, I raised my hand in response to what Malte said, but I also can short comment maybe on what Morgan said with we also see in Vienna that when starting to drill and to lift the project, much new knowledge comes when you are in the doing. So, for example, the point that Morgan raised, that there is also natural gas can be found in the drilling, that is something that we have to take out, of course, and we are doing that. So we are capturing that because only then we can achieve climate neutrality with this objective. So geothermal energy has many advantages, benefits, and if we want not only to have the benefits for the price stability, for the independence of our European resources, heat supply, but also climate neutrality, then we of course need to also capture that, and that's what we are doing. So I think it's true, when you are in the project you discover new points, but I think there are solutions which are already applied today, and Vienna is an example for that we are already doing that. Otherwise it would not be serious, our objectives that we have there with geothermal energy. To complement rather what Malte said, I think also in our experience is absolutely key with the regulatory framework to act on that, the new mandate of the Commission, but also new Parliament. It is certainly important to have this term of geothermal energy, to have also a new heating and cooling strategy. The one from 2016 is outdated, so on both we need that, but also on geothermal energy a focus. And what should be addressed, some of the things are at national level. For example, in Austria, a big issue is the land ownership, which is not restricted in depth. And that brings me to a point that could be a European issue, and that's at minimal through guidance, but maybe we can go beyond that. Is an equal footing both with oil and gas, because they have drilling rights that we don't have for geothermal energy. With the example that I said with this land ownership, that can be restricted for oil and gas, but not geothermal energy, which is absurd, given the context in which we are living and what we want to achieve. And then equal footing also with other renewables and hydrogen, for example. If you see the financing that goes into other renewables and hydrogen, which is fine. Yeah, hydrogen is also an important pillar, certainly, but a lot of support, a lot of financing also at EU level goes there. We also need to have the support for geothermal energy. We need it for projects. De-risking is an issue, the high investment costs that we have, but also, for example, independently of what we are doing in the company, for research and innovation to advance the technology. So also there, more support should go. I know that the debates are very vivid on the next MFF and also in general on financing at EU level, the priorities, but I think we have to take care all of those that have the objective of decarbonization in mind, that geothermal energy is not overlooked.
Thank you very much, Johannes. I think that equal footing that maybe is a good bridge to our questions in the Q&A. And it's nice when the audience is playing devil's advocate so that I can maintain my pretend neutrality. But one of our audience members earlier asked, shouldn't we focus on solar thermal or aquathermal together with geothermal at the same time? So aquathermal energy from surface water. I mean, you know that, but maybe some of the audience do not. Maybe Johannes, if you can start with that, and if any other of you want to weigh in afterwards, that is good.
I can start, but maybe not give the full answer because, of course, being a concrete operator on a concrete territory, we are limited to certain technological possibilities at the moment. So, for example, one point that we are sometimes asked, why do we not use also geothermal energy for electricity generation? I think it was already raised. It's a question of temperatures that we can achieve, but we think that when we look at the whole system approach that I tried to elaborate at the beginning of this session, we try to combine with, for example, large-scale heat pumps to take from the sewage plant a huge amount of heat out from our combined heat and power that we will transform to hydrogen. We also try to take the most efficient approach to take already the last heat that in the past was wasted from industrial plants. We try to take. So I can only give you a limited answer that we try really to take the optimum from what we have in the concrete city of Vienna. And I think the answer is different for each part of the EU.
Yeah. That is, well, it's good that all options are, of course, looked at. I guess that was maybe a bit the gist of it. Malte, you also want to weigh in?
Yes, and maybe adding on what Johannes just said on this question. I think, of course, obviously we are a German geothermal developer, so our interest is to develop the projects as big and as much as we can. But from discussing with our customers, like Veolia in Poland or in other places in our other projects, we learned that the district heating operators, of course, they have to look in their options, and for them the price is very important. So they need a stable source. That's one thing for the kind of baseload heat, and they need a stable price. And what we need for a geothermal project is a lot of hours per year where they take off the heat to have a viable project, because our interest is that we can spread the initial investment for drilling, which is quite expensive, over 30 years to get a stable price for the consumers. And like in Denmark, the district heating regulation is Friis, or to the extent I understand it, we need to be the cheapest option when they do the contract, so compared to other sources. So from our point of view, there can be a business case, but it really depends on the city, on the type and the size of the district heating grid, on the resources available, or competing resources available, if they can go into different technologies and sources. And what we learn, and as Michael has described, also the district heating operators need several resources to play with it. Because you have the heat curve, and the demand in summer obviously is lower than in winter, so they need something to play around with it a bit to meet the heat demand they have to cover.
Very good, thank you, Malte. I don't know if the other two panelists want to weigh in on that. Otherwise, I go on to the next question in the Q&A. Which is, what are the, I mean, we already talked a bit about the EU, about the policy level, but what key additional EU measures would you like to see to accelerate the uptake of district heating with geothermal? Morgan, I see you have your hand raised. I don't know if that was to the
Yes.
previous one or to this one. Either
I
is
think
fine.
it's a bit building on, yeah. I mean, one thing that's also, I think, important to keep in mind is the idea of cascading use of geothermal water. So, you know, first you use it for, depending on how high the temperature is, you can use it for heating, or maybe if it's even high enough for industrial processes.
You're breaking up again, Morgan. I'm sorry.
And then you can, yeah, maybe
Oh no, you're
use it
back.
with a heat pump once it gets a bit lower. And then once a bit lower, it can be for, okay, same use, but yeah, just doing it at all different temperature levels. So for instance, in spas, you can use it once it's already been used for the heating. So this is what we see in some of the places that really have high temperatures. And so I think that's also something to keep in mind, so then that you're able to use it really from all temperatures.
You were breaking up a bit there, Morgan, but I think we got the gist of it. Then maybe going. Oh, Malte, you also have your hand raised, please.
Yeah, sorry, I maybe I talk a lot, but so if there's one to add, please. But on the question in the Q&A, I think Johannes already pointed out we need. I think first step is that the parliament asked for, and now the Hungarians are working on conclusions to, in terms of political support, get a geothermal strategy or action plan, or however you want to call it, to kind of highlight the potential and highlight the need to work on the EU framework, from best practice exchange to guidance to maybe legislation. That depends. This is really what we have to look into the detail. And secondly, this needs to be embedded or linked to the heating issue, because in heating, not much has happened. I think there are a lot of little screws in Fit for 55, but at least I feel that the big picture maybe is not there yet, and we need to do more to meet the targets. So Johannes proposed to have a look at the old strategy. Maybe that's a way to go, to do an EU heating strategy, but then it should be linked to geothermal. I think
Yes,
that's one
maybe
thing. Yeah, but I stop here. So
before
yeah.
Before I give the word to Michał, I think this is topical to mention also that we as Cool Heating Coalition recently released a report that looked at the pathways for decarbonizing heating and cooling, and I think that very much underlines what you say, Malte, that there's quite a need to. I mean, something has happened, but we'll still have a lot to do as of 2030. Michał, please, you also wanted to weigh in.
I think that we should develop mechanisms to support geothermal energy, both financially and educationally, yes, because therefore, apart from the financial side, a broad campaign is needed to promote geothermal energy as a heat source for heating systems and low temperature district heating systems, yes, and because everybody say about power grid, but nobody say about district heating network, about pipes, yes, because in Europe, in West Europe, and all Europe, the power grid is normal, regular thing, yes, but pipeline and the large district heating system are located only in the east old Europe, yes, and because in Poland, in maybe Poland and Czech, Slovakia, Romania, there are large district heating systems, yes, and nobody says about support the system, this pipeline, yes, but everybody say about the grid, yes, and I think we have to development support for this district heating, yes, and this is one. And second, I think that developing parliaments should to launch developing solution enabling the production of electricity, even using geothermal water with a water temperature below 100 degrees. But I don't know, is it possible? Yes, does it possible? But I think that we should to try, yes, and we should try. And the last, on the local market, it is necessary to develop legal framework, yes, to facilitate the construction of heat networks at the location of geothermal sources in urban spaces. Because today it is okay, it is possible, but it is hard to do it, yes. And I think it's we need a special legal framework to as like for gays and for gays, for example, yes, to locate to locate this sources in the urban spaces, yes, because it is close the distinct heating network, close our clients, yes, and
Yeah. Thank you, Michal. Malte, I see you also have your hand raised, and after that, I see there's a new question in the chat. So we will, if you just can yeah, give your input, Malte, and then we'll move on to that one.
Yeah, I maybe can tell it already a bit because I mean I fully support what Michael said. So I mean we also see those if there's money available, and if you talk about financial measures, then from our point the priority should be district heating grids, modernization of district heating grids, expansion of district heating grids, because as the colleagues explained, this enables the uptake of geothermal heat, but also of other sources. When it comes to measures, financial measures for geothermal projects, on the one hand, you have this de-risking mechanisms, which exist in France since a long time, in the Netherlands. I think in Germany, there's a discussion about it. So it's basically, from our point of view, it's a member state issue because they are doing the budgeting for it. At EU level, it could be an idea to have some sort of guidance or design principles, because from our point of view, it's important to have a good balance between the risk that the company like us should take, so that we do our homework, we do a proper de-risking, checking the data, doing seismic, all these kind of stuff, have competent people on board before getting the let's say the insurance or the subsidies for drilling. So this is one thing we might see at EU level, but for the rest, I think it's up to member states. Yeah, so maybe this covers already the question from the Czech ministry in the chat.
I think partially yes. I mean, I don't know. I'll read it up in a second. Just before I forget, Michal, you also mentioned communication, which reminded me of an anecdote I heard in the other week. It was not geothermal district heating, but an geothermal energy location, where the person from the company talking about this, he said that they had locals coming to their plant saying, "Where's the coal?" Because they did not know it was a geothermal district heating plant. They just saw smoke coming from the tower, and they presumed it's a coal plant. So this communication, you mentioned more on the I think more societal level, but also on the local level, it is definitely an issue. So they were asking where the coal was being hidden for this plant. But enough about that. I will just read out the question. Is there any country in the EU with good current policy support schemes for geothermal? And this is indeed asked by the Czech ministry. They're currently looking into ways how they could support this nationally. Johannes, Michal, I don't know if you have additional input. We already heard the Netherlands and France as good examples. Michal.
No, I want to say only that I know.
Very good. Johannes, I don't know if you know other good practice examples.
For us, unfortunately, it's also the other way around. We also would like to have them. That's what I meant, exactly the point with equal footing with renewables, to extend those support schemes to geothermal.
Yeah, Morgan, I see you're back on. We just got the question if there are any countries with good current policy support schemes for geothermal. This is coming from the Czech Ministry. Malte already mentioned France and the Netherlands. I don't know if you have other examples that come to mind. I think you might have just
There's
frozen, but
always like
oh,
the good boy in this one that's mentioned. I know any others that are leaning on it that too, but I think it's also going to really depend on the country to country and their situation.
yeah. Then we have a question from Felix Friedemann from Rescue. What good practices do we have to ensure social acceptance of the geothermal transition? And what role does citizen ownership like energy communities play? And I guess the social acceptance also goes back a bit to the anecdote I told before. Who would like to take that one up first? No one? None of you have
Maybe
Morgan.
I can briefly. I mean, I think it's like everything with district heating. It really depends on having a good relationship with the localities and really explaining to last for a few months. But once it's done, then you have cheaper energy. So it also has to go along with the promise that they're going to get some benefit, and also just being transparent about it, and as well as creating employment opportunities as well, because sometimes I think that's a fear, is that we're playing.
Yeah. Malte, you have your hand raised, but I think Johannes unmuted himself first. I don't know if either of you has a preference.
Johannes, go ahead, Johannes.
Very attentive. I can be very quick. What we are doing is, of course, communication. Find a lot of information on the internet if you type name of our company and geothermal, and of course we try to especially distribute this beyond the internet, on the spot in the city, to those that are concerned, not only neighbors but also the whole population. Also to motivate, I think, if I understood you right, Morgan, also to explain that has an impact also on prices, on the life quality with regard to emissions. But also we are doing hearings for those that are concerned in the neighborhood. So there are a lot of different elements where we try to reach the local population.
Yeah, and it's good to hear. Malte.
Yeah, very briefly. Yeah, basically similar story. So we have the project in Aarhus, we drilled 3 wells. One well takes about, I don't know, 4 or 6 weeks. And the drilling is, of course, going on 24/7. It's not diesel generators, but electricity driven, but still it makes noise. There's light pollution because it's going on in the night. But what we try to do is, our idea is to involve the neighbors first. So to explain it, to communicate, and to invite them, to show them what's going on. And actually in one of these sites, there were a couple of people so affected by it or so disturbed by the noise that we then offered them to be placed in hotels or summer houses for just to get some rest and some quiet. But I think the local community is behind it. The people understand that they have to, once this is done, once the drilling is done and the construction is done, it's basically quiet and emission free and so on. So this is, I think, the benefits, the long-term benefits overweigh the short-term noise and distortion and so on.
Yeah, I think that's also something we see from other types of renewable projects, that once you have buy-in from the locals, then everything is smooth sailing, at least in that aspect, and so forth. We're entering the last 5 minutes of our webinar, but I think we have time for one more topic to discuss, for one more round. And I was wondering, we mentioned, or Sigrid Friis mentioned in her video statement in the beginning, the energy independence potential of geothermal. Now that of course goes to, and the energy security, I should say, not just independence. That goes to reducing the need for gas. I wanted to ask you, do you see other angles to this, or is it really just this reduction of imports of gas from foreign, from foreign. There's a lot of foreign in the EU, but from extra EU partners. Malte, I see you unmuted yourself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was waiting. But I can, yeah, for me, I mean, of course, it's the obvious thing is import from gas and you're reducing that. But I mean, I talked about biomass earlier on, and to my understanding, biomass is also often imported. So maybe from less problematic countries, but still it's imported, and then there are dependencies on it. But I think the local characteristic or the local nature of geothermal has other advantages in addition to this kind of security angle. Yeah. So maybe some colleagues want to ask. Otherwise, I don't want to talk for the last 5 minutes.
Which is also fine. Your contributions have been very substantive. So if no one else wants to add to that, maybe one more question that I got by way of email actually, which is also a way to send in the questions. And that goes also back to the video message at the beginning, but also to a few things that you said, the panelists, namely that the EU has successfully supported the deployment of many renewable energies. And do you see any concrete established policy and EU support that we could learn from and replicate for geothermal? So I think before it was more like a general question, which countries are worth emulating. This is more, is there something specific you have in mind from any country that you say that we found very interesting, or that we have experienced as helpful maybe in your own countries? If nothing comes to mind now, then we can
maybe,
also...
sorry. Yeah. No, just thought of, because we just discussed data, and I think the Netherlands have a quite fine tool, like online tool. Everybody can access it, download the data for free, and this is kind of a benchmark to get the subsurface data. So basically, I think for subsurface people, geologists, this is a kind of a dream.
Very good. Well, now we're unless anyone else wants to add to that, we're really entering the last 3 minutes, and I know that that even though we're not in the COVID era anymore of back-to-back online meetings, people still have plenty to do in their day. So I would actually just want to end on the note of thanking our panelists, Malte Nyenhuis, Morgan Henley, Johannes Immige, and Michał Dzinek, and also the support team, which has been on this call. I think we had a good discussion. I think we identified some of the key points. Political support was mentioned, de-risking, and data as well, and de-risking in finance, but also the general funding of these projects, and opening up public funds to that. And I don't know if I mentioned political support already, but if I did, then here again, political support. Now we are happy to see that there does seem to be some steam behind that. So we are hopeful that we can rally that more, and then manage a successful deployment of geothermal district heating. I thank you all for having been here today. And I wish you a good rest of the day and good further discussions.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day.